A type of African wildcat which escaped from its owner is now in custody, and it took 7 Jefferson Parish Animal Control officers to capture it.
But for several hours this morning, it had people in a Metairie neighborhood scared after it attacked a family pet. Meg Ferris shows us how the hunt unfolded in the 5200 block of York Street.
Oh, I'm going on a little adventure, guys.
The call to 911 said social media reported a bobcat on the loose. When Jefferson Parish Animal Control determined it was a male serval, a wild African cat raised as a pet, their officers went into action.
This was a matter of public safety, so we always want to make sure that in matters of public safety, everybody responds.
Neighbors were concerned.
Because I walk her every night and kind of wondering about maybe encountering this thing.
So we got to get in there.
The 5200 block of York was where the male serval named Cesar grabbed one of a girl's pet silky chickens.
Got an emergency call at 4 a.m. Right after the attack, and she said the cat had her bird in his mouth.
Veterinarian Dr. Leslie Pence of Avian and Exotic Animal Hospital says Rainbow is being hand-fed by syringe and would not have survived if her owners had not foiled the attack.
She was in a lot of pain when she was brought in, but we took care of that pretty easily, and we're working on cleaning her wounds, giving her antibiotic to prevent infection, and keeping on top of her pain control.
A little after 11 a.m., Animal Control spotted Cesar in a tree with a minor injury to his paw. He was captured without anyone getting hurt and without tranquilizers. He's being housed at Audubon Zoo while the situation is under investigation. Neighbors say the woman who owns the African cat lives a half-mile away from Rainbow's attack. She worked with Animal Control but would not talk to the media. Dr. Pence says it's illegal to have a serval in Jefferson Parish unless owners get a special permit and pass a home inspection. The owner told Animal Control this.
According to the owner, this cat sleeps in bed with her.
Meg Ferris, Eyewitness News.
Wow. All right, Jefferson Parish Animal Control says the owner did not have a permit for the cat that they're aware of. They're still trying to figure out how the animal got out. Imagine that, sleeping in the bed with you.